It's San Francisco 49ers week. Let's go.
There it is. Football is back, baby. What's going on, everybody?
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here with the Playbook Sports Podcast. I am Colin. I will be previewing the Dallas Cowboy game this Sunday night in San Francisco. Biggest game of the year to this point so far, maybe the biggest game of the entire NFL season. Two absolutely playoff hopefuls moving forwards. The 49ers are obviously a huge juggernaut, 4-0 on the year. Their offense looks unstoppable, and their defense is just as good as it's been the last several years, although they're on their third defensive coordinator in 3 seasons. But they look fantastic as a team. Dallas looks awesome as well, except for one glaring flaw here, and it is their red zone offense. They have done nothing but struggle. They're the 30th ranked team when it comes to converting touchdowns in the red zone. Yikes. I mean, only 36.4% of their red zone drives are resulting in touchdowns. 36%. It's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough to win many games. It's definitely not going to be good enough to beat the San Francisco 49ers in their place this Sunday night. So let's quickly, kind of getting into this game, I just wanted to review the last 2 matchups. Both were in the playoffs. Both were victories by San Francisco. Just wanted to see how those games shaped out and, kind of get a gauge of how these two teams have played each other as of late and to see if their play styles will continue to what they have been the last several matchups. So Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers have played each other in their history 39 times. The series between those 39 games is 19 wins, 19 losses, 1 tie. Something's got to give, unless we get a second tie this weekend, which would be devastating for all the hype that this game is meant to be. Looking back at the 2021 wild card game in Dallas, that is the one where Jimmy Garoppolo led the San Francisco 49ers into Dallas and beat the Cowboys 23-17. The biggest play in remembrance of that game was Dak Prescott scrambling for 16 yards, going down with about 8 seconds on the clock, not getting the ball to the official, not getting a playoff, and the Cowboys season ending at the 24-yard line down by 6. In that game, they were down 23-7 entering the fourth quarter. They won 10-0 in the fourth quarter, making it 23-17. And they had the ball at the end of the game with a chance to go down and win it, and they could not get it done. Then you look at last year's game, 19-12, defensive battle, a lot of field goals both sides. You hold San Francisco to 1 touchdown, and you lose. It's a tough loss. Dallas only scored 1 touchdown as well. So let's talk about that game. The game last year, 2022, in San Francisco for the divisional round of the playoffs, as I mentioned, 19-12 was the final score. It was the 9th playoff meeting between these two teams, which ties the NFL record for most games, postseason games played between two teams. So let's talk about how the game started. The 49, couple punts to start the first quarter, per usual. 2 really good defenses going at it. The 49ers captured the first points of the game on a Dallas mistake. Dak Prescott threw his first interception of this game on his own 21-yard line. Defense held up 3-0 San Francisco after that mistake by Dallas. Very next possession, Dallas gets the ball 17 plays, 79 yards, and they get their lone touchdown in that first quarter or early second quarter to Dalton Schultz. And then immediately Brett Maher comes on, missed PAT. And that was kind of a tone setter. If you watch the Cowboys last year, Brett Maher missed several kicks down the stretch of the season. And honestly, to go up 7-3 and make it a 4-point game and making the San Francisco 49ers have to get a touchdown to retake the lead. You can't tie it when it's 4 points. You have to get the touchdown and go ahead. He misses the extra point here on the touchdown drive. Next drive, the 49ers go on a 12-play, 41-yard drive. 12-play, 41. How do they get that many plays in that little yards? Dallas gets a 15-yard penalty to help them on that drive. San Francisco goes down, gets a field goal, ties it 6-6, where it should have been 7-6 if Brett Maher could make an extra point. After they tie it 6-6, Dallas gets the ball, goes down to San Francisco's 18-yard line. Here we go. We're about to take the lead. Just kidding. Dak Prescott interception number 2 to Fred Warner. After that play, San Francisco 49ers march down, get a 50-yard field goal from Robbie Gould to get a 9-6 lead going into the half. Right at the second half started, Dallas gets the ball. Okay, we're down 3. We should be up 3, 6-point swing there. You get the ball to start the second half. Maybe you go down, tie it. Nope, Dallas punts on their first drive. But however, San Francisco, Ray McLeod muffs the punt. Dallas recovers on San Francisco's 21. Dak Prescott, 2 mistakes, one in his red zone, one in his own side of the field on his own 21 in the first quarter. Dallas gets that mistake. So one of Dak's mistakes kind of made up for on this play here. However, Dallas stalls out. Brett Maher field goal ties it 9-9. And after it gets tied 99, what does San Francisco do the very next possession? 14 plays, 76-yard drive. And the biggest play on that drive, if you remember, was George Kittle, kind of the bobbling catch for a 30-yard gain. You can't give that up, Dallas. And if you look at the replay, why is a defensive tackle trailing George Kittle in coverage? I mean, so much wrong in that play. 30 yards to Kittle. That drive ends with a Christian McCaffrey 2-yard touchdown. That's really the most you heard McCaffrey's name in this game. He did not a whole lot in perspective to what he's done the rest of his games for the Niners. So after the McCaffrey touchdown, it's 16-9 San Francisco. And here comes Turpin on the return. 44-yard return to Dallas's 42-yard line, tripped up by Robbie Gould, and it just continues to ask the question, what happens if Robbie Gould doesn't make that tackle and Dallas ties it up 16-16? But you could play the ifs and buts game all day long. After he gets tripped up by Gould, Dallas gets a field goal on that drive with the good field position off the kick return, 16-12 49ers. And so what did the Niners do when they get the ball back up for? They go on a 14-play, 64-yard drive. A field goal caps off the drive to make it 19-12 with 3 minutes and 8 seconds left. And then we all know how the game ends with Zeke taking the snap at center and then Turpin getting lit up on a little 6-yard route. Kind of a theme here. San Francisco I just counted 4 drives here of 10-plus plays, all resulting in scores. Dallas has to get off the field on third down. And then obviously I mentioned they had a couple of key penalties along the way here. To really, help the Niners continue their drives. So just looking at the two quarterbacks here, I didn't really write down the stats between Garoppolo and Dak 2 years ago because Garoppolo and Dak aren't facing off this week. So I looked at Brock Purdy versus Dak Prescott last year in that playoff game. Brock Purdy was 19 of 29, 214 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Enough to win, obviously. Didn't make any mistakes. That's kind of the big part there. And then you look at George Kittle. He was the leading receiver for the Niners, 5 catches, 95 yards. As I mentioned, one of those was that 30-yard catch to set up the McCaffrey touchdown. Speaking of McCaffrey, he had 16 touches in the game for 57 yards. That is pretty bad. He had 10 rushes for 35 yards, and then he had 6 receptions for 22 yards. Relatively pedestrian game for Christian McCaffrey, under 4 yards per touch. Great game by Dallas, keeping McCaffrey in check. However, their offense couldn't do enough on the other side to win it for him, and McCaffrey still got the lone Niner touchdown. Dak Prescott's stats in that game, he was 23 of 37, 206 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 2 interceptions. So he had the touchdown compared to Purdy's no touchdown, but he had 2 picks compared to Purdy's 0 picks. CeeDee Lamb was a leading receiver in the entire game, leading receiver for Dallas, obviously, as well. 10 catches, 117 yards. Fantastic game from CeeDee Lamb. And as I talked about Turpin being a threat and giving Dallas good field position on kick returns, he had 4 kickoff returns for a total of 120 yards. So he was averaging 30 yards per kick return. That's pretty good. I'll take that every day of the week. So recapping what they did last year in the playoff game, both teams really struggled to get in the end zone. They both only got in the end zone 1 time. However, San Francisco made less mistakes, leading to a couple of more scoring drives, whereas Dallas really shot themselves in the foot with a couple of key turnovers in that game. So let's go ahead and get into the X factors for the Sunday night game in San Francisco. First, let's start with the visiting team, the Dallas Cowboys. And my first X factor, I always like to give 1 on defense, 1 on offense. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give 2 on defense. It's kind of a combo pick here. It's Mazi Smith and Jonathan Hankins, the 2 beefy boys in the middle. You have to stop the running as the 49ers. You have to limit Christian McCaffrey and the damage he does to you in the game. So looking at Mazi Smith on the year, he only has 3 tackles on the season in 4 games, only 1 tackle for loss, 0 sacks. Relative non-factor as far as finishing the play. He has had some impact on disrupting the running pass and forcing runners to bounce outside versus running up the middle. But his stats here don't really show much production as far as finishing the play and getting the guy on the ground. Jonathan Hankins, 8 tackles in 4 games, 0 tackles for loss, 0 sacks. As I mentioned with Mazi Smith, he's done pretty well in impacting, clogging up the middle and forcing the action outside, but hasn't done a lot in bringing the running back down or providing pressures on the opposing quarterback. The X factor here for Dallas offensively is going to be Jake Ferguson. Obviously, he's been picking up his production week by week here as Dallas moves on with him being the number 1 tight end here after Dalton Schultz departed in the offseason. Ferguson, 2nd in the team in receptions, 2nd in targets, 3rd in yards, and he's tied for 1st in receiving touchdowns. Jake Ferguson's going to have a big game this Sunday if Dallas wants to go ahead and win this one in San Francisco. So let's get to the Niners. Their one defensive X factor I wrote down was Diamador Lenore. I hope I pronounced that correctly because I'm terrible with names. Kind of the left side of the field. That's one thing I've seen with the 49ers this year. Opponents like to attack that left side of the field. They don't want to attack Ward on the right side. They want to go at Lenore here on the left side. However, Lenore has 30 tackles. That's third on the team. One pass defense, one interception. So he's really good at getting the runner on the ground. Maybe not so much at defending the ball in the air, but he can get you down. He can tackle you. That's something the Niners are really, really good at, is getting people to the ground when they get their hands on them. Not a lot of broken tackles, not a lot of yak against the San Francisco 49ers. Normally, I don't like to get too obvious with my X factors, but here it's got to be Deebo Samuel for the offense for the Niners. He's second on his team. He's tied for second on his team in receptions, first on his team in targets, second on his team in yards. And then this is the big one here. He has 245 receiving yards on the year. 141 of his 245 are after the catch. He has 141 yak yards after the catch. And why do I mention that? I mentioned this on our main podcast video whenever we recorded it. Since 2021, when Dan Quinn took over as the Dallas Cowboy defensive coordinator, the Cowboys are 30th out of 32 teams in the NFL at allowing yards after the catch to opposing pass catchers, whereas the 49ers since 2021 are first in the amount of yards after a catch on offense. So really a great strength for the Niners and a really bad weakness for the Cowboys are going to match up here. And Deebo Samuel having over half of his yards after the catch could be a big X factor in this game. Look at McCaffrey's stats as well. Actually, let's wait. Let's get to that. The keys to victory here. So we got 5 keys to victory. Number 1, early lead. Dallas has to get out to an early lead. You cannot get behind the Niners. You can't allow that pass rush to get hungry and get 4 home. And because, like Nate said in his preview video, you drop 7 against any team and you're going to struggle. Little stat on Dak Prescott here. I heard on ESPN. Shout out Pat McAfee for stats. Dak Prescott is number 1 in the NFL in quarterback rating when he's playing with a lead. If Dak gets the lead, he's really, really good. Now, whenever he's trailing in the game or in the game's tied, he has 26 QBR. That's a pretty drastic jump. He goes from number 1 quarterback as far as QBR with the lead to a bottom 5, bottom 6 quarterback whenever he's tied or trailing. So it's a huge key for Dallas to get out in front in this game. So that way Dak can be on that upper echelon of quarterbacks here. Key number 2, take care of the ball. Pretty self-explanatory. Whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win the game more than likely. Dallas had 2 turnovers last time they played. The Niners had 1 on the muff punt. Niners won that. They had 1 less turnover. They had 1 more score to win. Number 3 here, convert in the red zone. It's going to be a reoccurring theme until Dallas figures it out. They're 30th in the red zone in touchdown rate, as I mentioned earlier. They have 85 plays ran in the red zone. 85 plays. 7 of those plays have been touchdowns. That means 78 of the 85 plays have not resulted in touchdown. And to put that in perspective, Dallas's 85 plays ran in the red zone is by far the first in the NFL. The next closest is the 49ers with 54 plays in the red zone. The Dallas Cowboys have ran 31 more plays in the red zone than any other team in the NFL this season, and they have the 30th ranked touchdown rate in the red zone. That's pathetic. Just in comparison, last year under Kellen Moore, as much as we want to talk about Kellen Moore moving on and Mike McCarthy taking over the plays, currently Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys are 30th in touchdown rate, as I mentioned, only converting at 36.84%. Why does this camera look like trash? Only converting at 36.84%. Last year under Kellen Moore, Dallas Cowboys were first in the NFL, 71.43% on red zone touchdowns, 71%, and now they're 36%. Holy shit, that's a huge drop off. Dallas, you have to convert in the red zone. The 49ers are a team you cannot beat with field goals. You cannot beat with field goals because they're going to get in the red zone themselves and they're going to convert. Number 4 here, key to victory. You got to limit Christian McCaffrey. You say all you want about Brock Purdy taking care of the ball. I know you got Kittle, you got Ayuk, you got Samuel. Juszczyk we'll give a shout out to. They got weapons galore, but the main one here is Christian McCaffrey. This season, he's averaging 150 yards and like 1.7 touchdowns per game. He has 7 touchdowns in 4 games, 600 total all-purpose yards in 4 games. You got to stop this guy. This guy is the whole engine for the Niners. To put into perspective, Christian McCaffrey has played 18 games for the 49ers, counting the playoffs. 18 games. I'm gonna take away the Cowboy game out of that just to give a comparison. So 17 games against teams not named the Dallas Cowboys. He has 2,052 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns in those 17 games. 2,052 rushing yards comes out to about 120.7 per game with 1.1 touchdown per game. You compare that to what Dallas did last year in the playoff game against him. He only had, oh God, I lost all my stats here. Last year, as I mentioned, he only had 57 total yards. So that's about It's about 70 less yards. Quick math here. Shout out Dunlap. Yikes. So he's averaging about 70 less yards against Dallas than he was every other opponent. He did get the one touchdown, which matches his 1.1 on average. So Dallas, if you want to stop the 49ers offense, you got to stop that rushing attack, especially with Elijah Mitchell listed as out. You got to stop Christian McCaffrey. Fifth and final key to victory here is you got to pressure Brock Purdy. I know it's easier said than done. Looking at the stats here, though, in last year's playoff game against Dallas, they pressured Purdy on 16 of his 33 dropbacks. That's a 48.5% clip. On those 16 pressures, Brock Purdy was 14 of 12 passing, 55 yards, 2 sacks, 2 scrambles. 4 of 12 passing, 2 sacks, 2 scrambles. You got to get home. You got to get pressured on this guy and force him to try and make a mistake, or at minimum, make him throw it away or get off his spot. So that's what Dallas Cowboys have to do to win. Those 5 keys to victory. Finally, I'll give you a score prediction here. It's going to be a sad game, in my opinion. I do think the 49ers win and cover the 4-point spread. Just a house of horrors. You know, everyone has it. Miami has Buffalo. Buffalo has the Jets. Everybody has somebody. The Giants have everybody that plays the Giants. But Cowboys house of horrors is the San Francisco 49ers. Final score prediction, I have the Niners winning 23-16, winning by 7. And honestly, it was 23-17 in that playoff game 2 years ago. 23-16 Niners are going to cover the spread. Game's going under. It's going to be a sweat fest, and I can't wait for the media to just rip my Cowboys on Monday morning. But thank you guys for watching. We will have a review out on Monday or Tuesday. I missed out on my review video last week, although it's really hard to give a review of a 38-3 beating of the Patriots. So maybe I saved the Patriots a little bit by not releasing one, but I will have one out this week regardless on Monday or Tuesday. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.